Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Quebec Anglophone Heritage Network's Eastern Townships Online Heritage Fair 2021. My name is Heather Darch, and I'm a QAHN Project Director, and I'm joined today by my colleague and co-host, Glenn Patterson. Hi, Glenn.
Hi, Heather.
At this point, Glenn, I'm going to give a few announcements. Would you like to come in a bit later to explain a little bit more about running the show today?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Well, for those of you who have not been members before, who have joined us today and are not sure what the Quebec Anglophone Heritage Network is, also known as QAHN, we are a nonprofit organization whose mission is to preserve and protect the history and heritage and culture of Quebec, and in particular of English-speaking communities spread right across the province. You're very welcome to become a member of QAHN, and membership is open to everyone, including community groups and heritage organizations. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about us and what we do and become a member, you can go to our website at QAHN.org and find out a little bit more about us. Membership gives us access to a lot of interesting things that are not available to non-members, including the Quebec Heritage News magazine. This is a really great news magazine filled with wonderful articles and pictures, history and heritage of our regions. And QAHN has just published a 2-volume anthology, and it's called Historical Views, Selections from Quebec Heritage News 2000 to 2020. And so this is a wonderful book to really dive into the history and heritage of Quebec, and it's a 10% discount for members. So if you love to read good stories about Quebec's past and learn about interesting people and places that you will not hear in a history textbook, and receive your own copy of Quebec Heritage News, you can become a member. And for first-time new members, you can take advantage of a 30% discount that we're offering today. That's $20 for 1 year. And if you're interested and you're on Facebook Live, you can send a message in Facebook that you would be interested to join. And if you're on Zoom, you can just use the chat box to let us know that you're interested in taking advantage of our 30% discount today. I have to remind you that it's only available during the length of the broadcast today, so about 2 hours. So you don't have a lot of time, don't wait. Okay, so I do have a few special announcements. QAHN's Scandal Makers series has some new episodes coming. And if you haven't seen series number 1, you can go to QAHN's YouTube channel. I think you just type in, QAHN YouTube Scandal Makers, that will take you there, or it's through QAHN's website as well. And it's all about the notorious or the interesting characters that you can find buried in the cemeteries across the townships. So we have a new series coming out later this fall, featuring an all-star cast, and we're going to have its worldwide film premiere later, coming soon. So just watch for some news announcements about that. And also we have a new series of Heritage Talks coming as well. Heritage Talks 2022, beginning at the end of January. So lots of new announcements coming out very soon. I would like to thank the funders who make our programs available for the Heritage Fair today. Thank you to Canadian Heritage and also to the Secretariat for Relations with English-speaking Quebecers. That's us. So let's get the Eastern Townships Fair started. I'll ask Glenn to come in at this point, and because he has a few instructions for us all.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Yeah, just a little bit about the interactive part of the show. The presentations will be quite short, limited time for questions. But if you do have a question, use the chat box. It's at the bottom of your Zoom window. If you're on a mobile device, you may have to tap your screen once and you should see this option to chat. But anyhow, yeah, send us a message and we'll try to relay if you have a question about the object that each person is presenting. Also, leave us comments on Facebook Live if you're watching there. I will check periodically if you want to leave a question. Like I said, we'll do our best, but time is limited. So use the chat box. And if you guys are having any trouble either on Facebook or on Zoom, leave a message and I'll do my best to help you out. Heather, back to you.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. Well, our theme today is show and tell, and we're going to travel around the townships to see what our local historical societies, museums, and archives have to show and tell us. We're really lucky in the Eastern Townships because we have so many heritage organizations, museums, societies, archives, all working to preserve and protect the history of this beautiful region of Quebec. And many of the people you'll meet today are volunteers. You'll also meet staff, and I can tell you the staff give numerous hours of volunteer time to their organizations through fundraising events and research. And they all know a lot about their corner of the Eastern Townships. And they're doing an amazing job, and will be able to help any researcher put them on the right track to find information from basic history to genealogy to really unusual things that only these historical groups will be able to help you with. So it's going to be really fun to see what they've uncovered in their collections for us today. And our first stop is the Eastern Townships Resource Center, and we're going to welcome its archivist, Jody Robinson. Hello, Jody.
Hi, Heather.
What do you have for us today, Jody? Go ahead.
Today, yes, okay. Well, today, I'll do a little bit of a brief rundown of what the ETRC is. I think I'll start with that, I guess. So the Eastern Townships Resource Center, we're located at Bishop's University in Sherbrooke, and we're an archive center as accredited by the Bibliothèque et Archives Nationales du Québec, the provincial archives. And we have an archive service as well as resources. We provide research assistance to a certain extent to people looking for certain documents or genealogy. And we also have our multi-repository online database as thousands of digital photographs and documents. It's called the Eastern Townships Archives Portal, and it's at www.townshipsarchives.ca. So we have that available as well. And that's just a little kind of like, and our focus is the English-speaking communities of the Eastern Township, so kind of broad. Anyway, but today what we did to mix it up a little bit is I went on a little field trip to talk about Sherbrooke's centenary in 1937.
Picture it, Sherbrooke, 1937. The city is dressed and decorated to the nines, all in honor of its fake centennial. So in reality, 1837, 100 years before 1937, bore no significance in Sherbrooke's history at all. But I'll come back to that in a little bit. So to give you a little context about how I came to this topic, when we have an archives full of interesting people and subjects, well, this summer, Dustin Gobet, our summer student, was working on some material relating to the Sherbrooke 1937 centenary. And to his credit, he came to me and he said, hey, like, this is a fake centennial. It wasn't actually a real anniversary of anything. And so I just found it so interesting. How and why does a city end up celebrating this fake anniversary, putting on this huge event with activities for 4 weeks with all sorts of decorations and special programs? So if we think back to it, 1937, that's nearing the end of the Great Depression. And of course, it's been a really rough 8 years for all the people of the country. It's starting to get better, but it's still not back to where it was, especially in the Roaring 20s. And it's in this context that the Sherbrooke Chamber of Commerce decided to push for hosting of this centenary in 1937, which would serve to boost local morale as well as to bring thousands of tourists to the city, which would of course be a huge boon to the businesses. So how did they revive at the date of 1837? Well, I'm pretty sure at that time, the people of the Chamber of Commerce and all of those others who were pushing for the centenary, I'm pretty sure that they were pretty convinced that this was a date of real significance, but later on we found that it actually wasn't. So they thought that the town of Sherbrooke was incorporated in 1837, and they also thought that this was a significant date because it was the year of the founding of the city's first newspaper, kind of really putting it on the map as a city of significance. Later on, historians realized that Sherbrooke was not officially incorporated until 1852. So a little bit off from the 1837 date. And then they also found that it was first referred to in like an official document, even though it wasn't incorporated, in 1839. So again, still off from that 1837 date. And they also found that there was another paper that started being published in Sherbrooke that predated the Sherbrooke Gazette. It was called the St. Francis Courier and Sherbrooke Gazette, and it started in 1831. So pretty much all of the reasons for 1837 have been debunked over time. So there you have it, how the 1937 centennial came to be fake. Still, that doesn't take away from the extravaganza that was the 1937 centenary. The events went on for a month, as I said, included all sorts of things like a huge pageant with more than 1,500 performers that was performed multiple times a week all throughout this time. There were parades, concerts, dances in the streets, fireworks, and on all the publicity, Sherbrooke was proclaimed as the Queen of the Eastern Townships, or the Electric City. So this is how they were promoted, and Sherbrooke was known as the Queen of the Eastern Townships for quite a long time, well into the 60s and 70s. And so that brings me back to why I'm here in the Magog Gorge today talking to you about the 1937 centenary. The Magog River Gorge is so important to the history of Sherbrooke. It was where the mills were first established and using water power in order to drive the equipment. Later on, dams were built, and that was how the city was able to have so much electric power. And it's just and it's also an iconic image in all of the views, historic as well as contemporary, of the city of Sherbrooke. And so it's just a fun, it was just a fun and relevant place to be.
Jody, that's a crazy story.
I know, it's so, it was just so surprising. You think like there's all of this publicity that still exists. Here's another example of a little like stamp that was done up just for the centenary with the lone pine on it, and all of this memorabilia that still, and ephemera that still exists with 1837 to 1937, and it was just a pretend date.
It's too funny. I know in my own community, they celebrated their 100th anniversary in 2012, and the village has been in existence since like 1812, but they just sort of chopped off that first part because it just didn't, I don't know why, it didn't fit. So yes. I think there's a lot of that, but that they really outdid themselves there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Are there any questions for Jody?
Nothing in the chat box.
Nothing in chat. Well, Jody, it's a fabulous story, and thank you for the images. They were really, really interesting. I guess it's up to the archives now to make sure they don't do it again, eh? That the fake anniversary is not celebrated again.
No, I mean, it's pretty well known now that it was a fake centennial, and we had Jean-Pierre Kesteman, who did the 4-part series on the history of Sherbrooke, has a little section about it, and it's pretty well known. And I mean, I guess centennials or any kind of anniversary are always difficult because I guess typically they're celebrating, as I said, the incorporation of a town, but people are obviously there well before that. And also I have for anybody who gets the Sherbrooke Record, my next article from the archives is going to be about it. So I'll have even more details and juicy gossip. And so that should be coming out either this coming Friday or the Friday after that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I will look for that for sure. Thank you, Jody, so much.
Thank you. Then.
We'll move along. We're going to go back across the townships, and we're going to go to the Bruck Museum in Cowansville and say hello to Michelle Rasico. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, Heather.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, me too. And thank you for inviting me.
Well, indeed. And what do you have for us today?
Well, I'm presently in the Bruck Museum on Principal Street at Cowansville. It's an art museum. And I'm with a painting taken from the Bruck Permanent Collection. It's a collection of more than 70 works of art. Now, in 1956, Gerald Bruck, president of the textile company Bruck Mills, and Eugenie Sharp Lee, wife of Leopold Skilkraut Lee, who was the general manager of the factory of the Bruck Silk Mill here in Cowansville, founded the Cowansville Art Center. In this building where I'm at presently, known at the time as the Bruck Recreation Club. From 1956 until 1979, the Cowansville Art Center will present many art exhibitions. Often, when the art center presented the works of an artist, it happened that this artist gave one of his works to the art center, or sometime a patron would buy one and give it to the art center. And this is how the Bruckley collection was formed. Now on Saturday, December 2, 1961, the Cowansville Art Center exhibited for the first time its permanent collection. Several artists also participated in the special exhibition. One of those artists was Alexander Young Jackson. And during the evening, Jackson gave one of his paintings for the permanent collection. Now, the following Monday, December 4, the Sherbrooke Daily Record published a text titled, A.Y. Jackson Donates Painting for Permanent Collection. Now, let me read a few excerpts from this newspaper article. A.Y. Jackson, one of Canada's foremost painters and an original member of the Group of Seven, personally donated one of his works to the Cowansville Art Center here Saturday evening. A.Y. Jackson's painting, Hills of Bolton Glen, done by the artist while on a visit here in 1910, boasts the center's permanent painting collection to 24. That was the scope of it, 24, and further down the other works of art were added to the collection. Now I'm continuing with one short excerpt. Addressing the large attendance, A.Y. Jackson praised the Cowansville Art Center for encouraging art in the area. Now, after reading this newspaper article, I wanted to know more about A.Y. Jackson's visit here in Cowansville in 1910. And that's Alexander Young Jackson was born in Montreal, 1882. In 1905, he went to England, then to Paris, where he studied painting. Then he traveled Italy, Holland, France, naturally, and came back to Montreal in 1910. In that same year, he came for a visit to the village of Swedesburg. Now, Swedesburg is part of Cowansville. That year, Jackson stayed several months in Swedesburg. He was probably living at the Swedesburg House Hotel, which stood on Main Street, right across from the courthouse, Cowansville Courthouse today. And it is during his stay in Swedesburg that he really started building his reputation as a painter. It is during that period that he painted this famous Edge of the Maple Wood, a canvas that brought him in contact with his future friends of the Group of Seven. And it is during his stay here that he painted Hills of Bolton Glen, which painting that he donated to the Cowansville Art Center in 1961, and now part of the Bruck Lee collection here at the Bruck Museum in Cowansville. So naturally, on your next visit to Cowansville, please put in your agenda to make a stop at the Bruck Museum on Principal Street and come see not only A.Y. Jackson's painting Hills of Bolton Glen, but also the rest of the Bruck Lee collection. And we always have also temporary exhibit all the time. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Michelle. That's wonderful. I had no idea there was a Group of Seven painting at the Bruck Museum. That's fabulous.
The collection is quite extensive, but this is one of the ones where we have several others. I'm not the expert I'm the expert in history of the Bruck Museum, but I'm not an expert exactly in the art section. We have another lady, Madame Brisset, Mireille Brisset, who's very, very well versed into all the history behind those artists.
Yeah, it's a fabulous place. If you haven't been to the Bruck Museum, it's easy to get to. There's lots of parking. If you can't find parking at the museum, it's just a shopping mall just down the street. It's easy to get to, and it's just a really beautiful site.
It's a very nice building to visit because originally it was a branch of the Eastern Township branch.
Yeah, that's
built
true.
in 1874. Yeah,
that's true. I forgot about that. Yeah, it's a great building. You have a beautiful office in there.
Thank you. I enjoy it.
And the painting looks so reflective of what we've just been looking at in the townships this past couple of weeks. It's just been beautiful. So yeah, lovely.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Are any questions for me, Michelle, before we move on? I don't think so, eh? I don't have the full screen, so.
No.
No, okay, thanks, Glenn. All right, thanks, Michelle. And now we're going to head over across the townships again, over to see Sharon Moore at the Eaton Corner Museum. Hi, Sharon, and welcome to the fair.
Hi, Heather. How are you?
I'm good, it's good. I don't see you just yet.
You what?
I don't see you just yet.
So should I be doing something maybe? The whole...
Start your video there, Sharon. I just sent you a message.
Oh, gotta take my glove off.
Got
Okay.
it.
There, perfect.
Perfect.
Doesn't work with gloves on when you're...
Well, you've got an interesting collection. Go ahead, Sharon, tell us all about it.
Yeah. So the Eaton Corner Museum has a good sized collection of kitchen woodenware. And it would have been found in kitchens in the mid to late 19th century in what was known as Compton County, and now people know it as the MRC of the Haute-Saint-François. Now, it was obvious because of the size of many of the items that I couldn't include a lot of things in the display. So I made personal choices, and I hope it'll give you a bit of a glimpse into what was used in many of the kitchens in Compton County. So I'm going to start with, I have this large bowl. It's a very large bowl. And the information that came with it said it was a chopping bowl. So among other things in the collection are 2 chopping knives, and they have wooden handles. This one is a little different shape than this one. Depends maybe on what you were chopping or who was holding it, what you would use. And then there's a smaller wooden bowl, one of the smaller wooden bowls. And again, could be used for dry fruit and probably chopping smaller items like maybe nuts. And then there's something else in here that I've always found it interesting. And it's called a beetle. And it was used to mash potatoes or other vegetables that might be mashed in a kettle. And it's just always intrigued me. I'm a little odd, I guess, that I like that beetle. The other thing that I've brought, and I brought the 2 of them because it's 2 wooden spoons. And as you can see, the scoops are a little bit different size, as are the handles. So going back to the larger items that I couldn't bring with me, what I did bring though was, because we have a wooden butter churn, so I brought a couple of paddles that would have been used to start gathering the butter together to make things. And one of the things, and this said, at first I thought, oh no, that must be for dough and whatever, because I'm thinking of today they have metal and plastic ones, but it said no, it was used in butter making to scrape the butter together. So then the butter would be put oftentimes into molds, and I have a couple of those with me. This one was so you could do 2 quarter-pound molds, and on the top, I don't know if you can see this very well, it's a design that would have been stamped onto the top of the butter. And this one would probably be a half-pound mold. And again, the different mold, the discs that would be used to stamp a design on it. And a lot of the families back then, they would take goods to the general store and trade with the store merchant for either other goods or have him sell it for them. And so the other thing I've got on the table here, it's a fat rolling pin. And it would have been used in another large item I couldn't bring. We have a wooden breadboard, pastry making board. It's probably about the size of a card table, and the piece that it's made from is all one. It's not 2 pieces of boards put together. So that would be used by the homemaker to roll out her pastry, to shape her bread doughs and her rolls. And I guess the last thing that I've got with me today is a wooden mortar and pestle. And that would have been used to grind your dried herbs and spices. And I would say that most, if not all, of the woodenware that we would have found in kitchens back then were probably hand carved and maybe even by the homesteader himself. And so that's my my little collection today.
That's super, Sharon. Thank you very much. I just love woodenware myself. I have a dough bowl that's been used so much, not by me, by somebody in the past. It has a hole in the bottom. You know, they just used them till they were completely worn out. Yeah, exactly. So you can imagine how much bread was needed in that bowl, or butter that was worked. If there's a hole in a wooden bowl, it's incredible. So it's a real testament to the settlers of your region, and they're beautiful too. I've some of those stamps are gorgeous. I've never seen any like them. So it's a wonderful collection. Well done.
Proud of the butter molds we've got and the discs that go with them. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. And I've never heard of a beetle either. That's interesting.
No. Yeah.
That's good. And I see there's some comments coming in too about how people love wooden bowls. And
someone on Facebook was wondering if you know what is there a type of wood that was typical for making these wooden kitchen implements?
Too bad my husband wasn't here. I'd ask him. He knows quite a bit about wood, and so does one of our board members, Dennis Palmer. I'm not sure, and I never thought to ask my husband what the wood might be. But
well, they are absolutely gorgeous, and you just made a nice display. Great work, Sharon, and everything looks fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. It's great to see you. Okay, now we'll head over to say hello to Bev Loomis, and Bev is representing Patrimoine-Ascot Heritage. Hello, Bev. Bev, you just need to unmute yourself.
I'll do that, Heather, for her. Just hang out there, Bev. Bev, you should see a message asking you to unmute. Just click that. Just accept it when it comes in. You got it. Welcome, Bev.
Thanks, Glenn. So it's good afternoon, everyone. I'm about to share with you two very interesting items from our collection and from the Little Hyatt one-room schoolhouse and historical site located in Milby. Now, to start off, I'm going to show you the picture of our. Can you see that?
Hold it up just a bit higher there, Bev. Very good.
So this was the first thing we have. And then I'm going to show you the survey or a compass that was used for surveying the lands. I think you can see it from there. It was called a theodolite compass, and it comes with several attachments. Two. Not sure how they were used, but however, it's what's in the box. And according to the Wikipedia, it's a basic surveying instrument that goes back to the 16th century. It's a precision optical instrument for measuring angles between designated visible points in the horizontal and vertical planes. And when in use, it is mounted on a tripod with adjustable legs and consists of movable telescope mounted so it can rotate around horizontal and vertical and provide angular readouts. The instrument goes along with our second interpretation panel, which is erected outside on our historical site and illustrates how lands were surveyed. This is, not sure how clear that's coming in, but this is the back side of their second panel. And just to show you the close-up that it gives all the readings, and it gives a detailed message, step by step, how they surveyed the land. Does become very interesting. So we're most fortunate to be granted permission to use this display because I picked it up in one of our Loyalist Gazettes, and I asked the publishing company if we could use that on our panel, and they were happy to have us use it, providing we gave them credit for the, so it's perfect. Then secondly is the measuring chains. This is a set of measuring chains that were used along with the man operating the compass. I don't know if you can see that, all the many pieces to it. Of course, of interest to us is because these measuring chains belong to James Addy, who was the land surveyor for the township of Ascot. You'll notice I'm spelling Ascot with 2 T's. That's the original spelling. The chain is a unit of length equal to 66 feet or 22 yards. It's subdivided into 100 links or 4 rods. There's 10 chains in a furlong and 80 chains in 1 statute mile. In metric, that's 20,1168 meters. They came into our possession because James Addy is my husband's great-great uncle, who married Parthenia Loomis, granddaughter of Loyalist Cornelius Hyatt, brother to Gilbert, the founder of Hyatt's Mills, now known as the city of Sherbrooke. It is of coincidence also that both James Addy and Parthenia Loomis were school teachers at our little schoolhouse in Milby. So, and now our schoolhouse and historical site has now been received the title of a National Historic Place name. I'm trying to get it up here. It's confusing because I'm reading the words backwards. So National Historic Place name by National Trust Parks Canada, and we have the sign mounted on the fence in front of our heritage site. It has been a long struggle to restore this little schoolhouse, and it's been 30 years, but we're awful happy to have it done. And now we want to see, hope and pray it's going to be kept. I'm not sure. It's always difficult to get young people involved. That's our problem.
Well,
However,
oh, sorry, Bev. I just wanted to say that's such a cool instrument, and the chains that you showed. I always said that the surveyors were the unsung heroes of the Eastern Townships. You can't imagine what their living conditions must have been like, carrying that kind of equipment through bush that was uncut, and heavy woods and mosquitoes and black flies and all that, you know, must have been quite something. So it's a really beautiful scientific instrument that you have in the collection. Thank you very much for sharing it with us.
I must tell you too, there were quite a few men involved in it. I didn't realize that. I often wondered how they struck off on foot through the woods trying to, but it's all detailed on our panel. It shows step by step how it was done.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you very
and
much.
Going to read, when I read many of the land records, I find that they buried a piece of delf in the ground, the marking post. Delf is a piece of pottery.
Oh, okay.
So now go find the potteries and know your line fences.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah. No, very cool. Are there any questions coming in on Facebook, Glenn? Or
I'd see one. I think maybe it's from Vicky. Vicky is wondering if you organize or plan to organize activities, expositions, or guided tours to your little schoolhouse.
Yes, we do. Of course, because of COVID-19, it was under lockdown last year, and this year we didn't get a summer student, but we hope we're going to have one next year. And if the students is there, it's much easier for us to organize something. But oh yes, we've had many expositions and barbecues, and Anything
Lovely.
for fundraising.
Someone on Facebook was saying that they would love to visit all of these places and they need to do some planning to make a circuit where they can visit all these museums. We'd love to see that kind of feedback. It's really nice to put a spotlight on these small museums and historical societies. So thank you so much, Bev. You did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you, Bev. Super. Well, next we have a real treat for you. I'm going to introduce you to our first guest speaker, John Mackley. John Mackley resides in Maple Leaf, Quebec, after living 36 years in rural Bury, Quebec, in a manner not unlike the hard times of Old Tom. John's stories, essays, and poetry have been published in the Township Sun newspaper, the anthology Waterlines, and the Bury Image, where he's on the editorial board, writes the columns, and creates the layout. He has designed and currently manages and writes 6 websites, 13 Facebook pages, and 5 Facebook groups. He's also working on a memoir and more Old Tom stories. And we welcome John today, who will be telling us about and reading from his book that's current, that's coming out very soon, his new book, Old Tom Stories, and Eastern Townships Life. Hello, John, and welcome.
Am I in the right place?
Indeed you are. Take it
John
away,
had to
John.
step out. John had to step out for a minute, so he to fill in for him. So I thought I'd read you a story. Is that all right? This story is called Orb. The sun was disappearing behind the Angliss Hills. And I turned onto Brooks Road. Maple, my horse, was named Maple after her dark amber maple syrup. The late October days had grown short. Twilight lasts less time than it takes to turn around 3 times this year. The trees were mostly bare, except in them scattered yellow poplar leaves hanging up on the tippity tops. Even the yellow tamarack needles were beginning to droop in the breeze. It had already snowed twice. A week earlier, it had all melted away, but a few patches in the shady parts of the roadside ditches. November was at hand. Decided chill on the breeze cut through my jacket. I decided I'd pull it tight around myself, and I fumbled for my gloves in the saddle as Maple trotted along the dirt road. I smiled, I did, when my hand landed on a bag of bonbons that I had bought at the general as a Halloween treat for little Trina. By the time we got to Hardwood Flat turnoff, darkness was fast upon us. I was grateful that Maple knew the way by heart. The family would have finished supper and probably the dishes too by the time we got there. I just hoped that Papa George and Mama Lydia wouldn't have put Trina to bed before I got home. The darkness was in by the time we rounded the curve on Tams Road and began the descent toward the dam. Suddenly, Maple stopped short and froze. I lost my grip. I righted myself in the saddle and held my breath. Peering into the inky darkness, I could get a sound that might explain why my horse had chosen to stop so abruptly. The seconds that followed felt like minutes, and it seemed like hours as Maple stood stock still. I was unable to perceive anything other than the sling of the remaining poplar leaves in the treetops, so I tried to coax Maple to proceed homeward. But the dang horse wouldn't budge. Now, I'm not the nervous type, and I've never been afraid of the dark. Ain't nothing in the dark that won't hurt you just as well in the day. As Maple continued to refuse to move, me anxiety began to mount. It started deep down in me shoes, and up my legs to my knees, and tingling as it worked its way up towards me chest. Me eyes had fully adjusted, but still I could only see blackness between the trees. The overcast sky was just opaque enough to block the starlight. Clouds were not low enough to reflect any of the glow from the nearby house lights. After what seemed like an eternity, I gave up trying to pull forward and dismounted. I intended to lead her the rest of the way home if I had to. It took all I could do to. I talked softly, gently, pulling on the reins at first, then more firmly. Step by step, we descended the hill. As we approached the curve that passed the dam, there was more open sky above the lake, and I could begin to see and make out the sheen of the water, and smooth as glass. With so little to focus on, I found it hard to clearly make out the outline of the small dam and the tree line on the other side of the lake. So when I thought I saw movement over the small island in the middle of the reservoir, I wasn't really sure I had seen anything. A sharp jerk on the reins and the mournful whine from deep within Maple's chest convinced me that the movement was not my imagination. She quivered and shook, then began to twist and rear up on her hind legs. Before I could get a better grip on the reins, the bear ripped them painfully through me fingers and out of me grasp. She turned and galloped up the dark road, rapidly shrinking from view. She rounded the curve and was gone. I stood there, puzzled, alone and shivering, partly from fear, partly from the cold. Then I turned slowly back to face the lake. I found the surface of the water and the small island for any signs of whatever had spooked Maple, leaving me alone in this predicament. I saw it, round and white, glowing in the inky blackness. Even with no moon nor shade, something white will stand out in stark contrast to the blue-gray dark of night. I didn't whether up the road after Maple, feel around for a broken branch to defend myself with, or stand and stare. I chose by default the latter. With a slight bobbing motion, the glowing white form rose slowly above the grassy little island. Then it disappeared again, silent and foreboding. I strained my eyes all the harder, trying to, I then couldn't see it all. Then there it was again, somewhat round, definitely white. Without consciously realizing it, I began to creep forward to get a better view. When the orb vanished, I tiptoed quietly down the embankment and across the grass to relative safety behind the crest of the dam, downstream from the rest of the island. I lay down on the dead grass and pulling myself up and forward, I peered gingerly over the top of the wooden dam and waited. Me curiosity had gotten the best of me fear at last. And there it was again, the glowing white orb rising up from the island, higher this time, the reflection of its undulating form shimmering in the glassy surface. As the orb rose higher and higher, it took on a definite shape. Suddenly, I became aware of a presence beside me, then a nudge on my shoulder. I jumped nearly out of my skin. Maple had overcome her fear as well and had quietly returned to peer into the darkness beside me. I patted the side of her snout and turned my attention back to the unfold before us. The white orb descended and vanished once again, but only momentarily. This time when it rose higher, growing taller and wider. For the first time, I could make out a pair of huge yellow eyes. Directly at the spot where me and Maple were hiding, we crouched lower in unison. The being before us seemed to presence. We held our breath. Then a broad set of white wings appeared outstretched. A blood-curdling screech pierced the darkness, and powerful wings lifted the great snowy owl off the ground. Carrying a large snowshoe hare in its talons, it flew in a graceful arc over the water and disappeared beyond the trees at the far end of the lake. Me and Maple stared into the darkness a few moments longer. Then we glanced somewhat sheepishly at each other and then worked our way back to the road. I was too excited to even feel the cold anymore. I climbed into the saddle for home, grateful for the spectacular encounter and for having lived to tell the tale. The end.
Thank you very much. Now, should I call you Mr. Mackenzie, or do I call you John? Or
I'm Thomas Ian Mackenzie, and John will be back later to present a special artifact.
Right.
Thank you very
Excellent.
much for this opportunity.
Well, thank you, old Tom. You speak in lovely poetry and prose, and I know that people will be very keen to know that there are more old Tom stories coming. And we're going to put on our Facebook page where we can order the latest edition of Old Tom Stories and Eastern Townships Life. So it'll be on the QAHN Facebook page, so people can purchase or find the order, where to order it from Shoreline Press. And we'll put the connection to Old Tom Mackenzie Facebook as well. So that'll be great. And I highly recommend to find out more Old Tom stories. They're quite delightful. And he's quite a character, as you can see. Okay, then we'll move along then. Let's head over to Stanbridge East and to the Missisquoi Museum, one of my personal favorite museums. And we'll meet with Tyson Rosberg. Hi, Tyson, and welcome to the fair.
Hello, welcome from Stanbridge East and the Missisquoi Museum, which I think you know a little bit well. I asked if we could share a photo. Here it comes. Thank you, Glenn, because the object that I wanted to share with you all today is a little bit big and unwieldy, and I didn't think I could justify stealing it to bring it home for the weekend. So given how close we are to Halloween, I wanted to choose something spooky from the museum's collection to showcase today. And if it's not spooky, well, it's certainly more than a little bit creepy, because today I show you a wreath carefully and lovingly made from human hair, and which dates somewhere between 1860 and 1870. And every detailed flower and component of this wreath that you see today is made from human hair, twirled and knotted and tied with wire to take on different shapes. Yet what you and I today might find a little bit creepy was an important marker of family grief, loss, and memory in earlier centuries. And the keeping and saving of hair for future use in either jewelry or commemorative arts, such as this wreath, is a very, very old practice, which has roots in the 17th or 18th century. However, this art form took on new popularity in the 19th century with the Victorians. It always seems to go back to the Victorians, because the Victorians were famously sentimental. They were a culture obsessed with death and with grieving. And in part, this obsession with mourning culture was spurred by Queen Victoria herself, who ruled the British Empire, including Canada and Quebec, from 1837 until her death in 1901. But in 1861, her beloved husband, Prince Consort Albert, died, upon which the Queen entered into a state of formal mourning that lasted for the rest of her life. And in a period when the monarch set the stage for cultural norms and social expectations, whatever the Queen did, everyone else thought they needed to do, Albert's death encouraged a whole fashion for mourning in popular culture that was on both sides of the Atlantic. And that lingered well into the 20th century. And in the United States also, the cultural obsession with death and grieving was further influenced by the high death toll and the sheer brutal, ugly nature of the Civil War. Then there was also the uncertainty of life itself. 19th century life was literally suffused with death, because in the years before modern medicine and sanitation, epidemics, a popular word for us this day, but epidemics of measles and diphtheria, typhus, smallpox, and cholera were common, killing many people. And hair art, such as this wreath, offered a means of commemorating lost ones and immortalizing them in a very visible and tangible way. Because every meticulous knot or delicate flower formed with hair and wire reflects an intimate connection between the artist and the absent subject. And some hair wreaths even included photographs or personal belongings, such as jewelry or clothing in the center. Hair art is but one of the many social customs of the 19th century pertaining to grief. Others included the wearing of black as a public statement of loss, something that we still sometimes do today in particular cultures, and also the custom of death portraits, where families would pose alongside the corpse of their deceased loved ones. Another bit creepy. And in our modern era of social media and digital photography, when we can all capture the image of those we love on our cell phones at the simple click of a button, the mourning customs of the 19th century seem foreign to us, and yes, a bit creepy. Yet customs like the making of this hair wreath is such an intensely intimate and personal display of family love. Perhaps it is we moderns in 2021 who have lost something important.
That was beautiful, Tyson. Thank you very much. It's
You're
an
welcome.
amazing object, isn't it? And it's the amount of hours and time that went into something like that. And when you look really carefully at it, you can see it's white hair and it's blonde and it's very fine, and red hair and brown. It's all different ages, which you're right. It would have, the death affected everyone and life turned on a dime. Still can, of course, but yeah, and it was very much present in people's households and in the village and in conversation. And so it's quite an extraordinary piece in the collection. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I'll see if there's any questions coming in from any of the group. I know other museums do have hair pieces for sure, but that one's quite amazing, and it's quite large. So yeah, good idea not to walk around with it. It's probably pretty fragile too.
Tyson, someone was asking if you know the provenance of that object.
Not necessarily that I can think of. What do you mean by the provenance?
Oh, it's archival jargon. Sorry, where it came from.
Well, see, that's a question that I could perhaps answer. Did not go to archival school, have a master's in history. It comes from somewhere in the region, so that's obviously not terribly helpful, but somewhere in the Brome Missisquoi County.
Right.
Yeah. As most things in the museum are local, yeah, for sure. So yeah, no, that's really wonderful. Thank you so much, Tyson. It's great to see that piece again, for sure.
Thank you for having me.
Our next stop is with Wendy Durant, who is meeting us in Uplands and is representing the Lennoxville-Ascot Historical and Museum Society. Good afternoon, Wendy.
Hi, Heather. It's really good to be here to show you our map of the District of St. Francis. If you hear a little bit of noise, it's because we're in competition with the tours that are going on in Uplands downstairs. So I'll do my best to be loud. So in 1833, the British American Land Company was granted its charter by the British government. And the next year, it started to sell its acquired lands to settlers from Great Britain and the United States. Some of these lands were already settled, partially settled, and others were called the wild lands. And the company commissioned a map of the District of St. Francis. And this particular copy was produced in 1863 by Putnam and Gray under the direction of Orlando Gray, an American topographical engineer. It's based on the 1861 census and shows quite a lot of data, which is really, really important for genealogists and researchers. It's such a wealth of information. It's a large topographical map of the 19th, early mid-19th century. And it's approximately 150 centimeters in length and approximately 130 centimeters in height. It appears to be printed on 6 separate sheets, which were affixed to a cloth background and then covered in varnish. And the varnish is probably what's giving it its dark color. If you look closely, you can see ridges and cracks. And here, along the border, there are water stains. In May 89, when Prince Philip visited lands, he was intrigued by the map and he asked many questions. Now, on the map are shown Richmond, Wolfe, Compton, Sherbrooke, and Stansted. And there are 38 townships here. And each of these townships was subdivided by lots, which showed the landowner's name and his house. In the 4 corners, there are engravings. A.K.A. Knight's house in Stansted, Knowles Hotel in Richmond, Bishop's College in Lennoxville, and Christopher Rawson's residence, Elmwood, also in Lennoxville. Now, there were 17 directories, and there are some all scattered all over the map. And these 17 directories showed the names of the person and their occupation. Shown also, we have a table showing the distance from Sherbrooke, the population of the St. Francis district based on the 1861 census, and a whole other wealth of information. There are land settlement patterns, it shows railways, it shows industries, churches, and many, many other things. Now, to assist researchers, Lance has taken excerpts from the map and has created a finding aid. It's called List of Names in Ascot Townships. So, for example, if you were looking for F. Mitchell, you would go to range 4, lot 7, and then using this aid, you would go to the map itself, and there's his house right there. Now, this is of particular interest to me because it appears that my house is on his lot, and our neighbor's house might have even been his house. And again, using the directory from City of Sherbrooke, you could find Henry Cameron, of St. Francis Hotel on Wellington Street, or an F. Loomis, who was located at the corner. He was a merchant, by the way. He was located on the corner of King and Wellington. Now, our visitors, according to our student tour guides, ask many, many questions about the map. What they seem to be most interested is finding their relatives, the names of their relatives on the lots on which they lived. They also ask, they were looking for a certain building, and what was built there? Does it still exist? And what is built there now? Were the settlers all English? And younger viewers are amazed at the size of the map. Some people just like to look at old maps. So come and visit us. Studying the map can raise such interesting questions. Come and see us, look at it, and truly be amazed.
Thank you, Wendy. That is a fabulous map. Is it, I missed it maybe at the beginning, but is it the original or is it a copy?
It's supposedly from 1863, and you can see where it was pieced together, and you can tell by the varnish and the water stains that I do believe it is
Original, yeah. Oh, it's amazing. Is there some sort of a protective cover on it, or people can get, no?
Just the varnish.
The varnish, yeah.
And that's why if you look really, really closely, you can see that there are some ridges and little cracks, and again, even on that side, there are water stains. Apparently how they installed it was they rolled it up. So that was very difficult.
Yeah, no, it's fabulous. And what a brilliant idea to cross-reference all the names on the map for researchers. That's really wonderful.
Oh, yes. Oh, it's just a gold mine of information. When you get here and you start looking at it, you start thinking, oh, how come this? How come that? And it just stimulates you to go and research further.
Oh, yeah, fabulous. And I just caught the fact that Prince Philip I was enthralled with. That's really cool. I didn't know Prince Philip had visited Upland, so that's neat.
Oh, yes, it was the 75th anniversary of the United Empire Loyalists, and he came down to Sherbrooke, Lennoxville. On May 20th, he came here and he visited Lambs. Mary O'Brand, our president at the time, took him around on the tour. He also was at Bishop's University in the quad, and actually my mother actually spoke to him, or he spoke to her in the quad. And then afterwards there was a church service in St. Mark's Chapel, and we were lucky we sat next to him. And my son was young at the time, and he was shuffling his feet, and Prince Philip was looking down at him, and he was probably thinking, he feels the way I do, but anyway.
No, that's great. And to think Prince Philip saw it, so we should all come and see it too. So that's great.
We'd be really glad to welcome you.
And I see Beverly Renault said in chat, my grandfather Frank Johnson is on the map. So that's very cool. Yeah.
Someone on Facebook, Wendy, was wondering if there's a digital version of the map available.
No. I guess, no, not really. The New York Public Library has a digital map of another version, but not this particular one.
Okay, so you really do have to come and see it in person. That's
right.
Or that's another project for you one day, is maybe to get it microfilmed or digitized. Yeah, that's great.
Oh.
Thanks, Wendy.
Okay,
and thanks very much to your person who's holding the cell phone too. Good for them.
That's my husband, Bruce, doing it.
Way to go, Bruce. Okay, excellent. Well, one of my favorite places to go when I'm on the eastern side of the Eastern Townships is to Stansted. And there we're going to go to the Colby-Curtis Museum and meet up with archivist Kathy Curtis. Hi, Kathy.
Hey, Heather. Hello, everyone. I'm here today all alone in the building, but I'm in the library. So today I'm going to present to you someone and some things that are very special to our collection. We have been very fortunate in having donated a large collection of archives and artifacts from the family of Maud Gage Pellerin, which consist of photos, original manuscripts, songbooks, notebooks, and many other archives that make up this wonderful collection. And it tells us the story, the very unique story and interesting story of Maud Gage Pellerin of Hatley, Quebec. Maud was a lifelong resident of Hatley, the only daughter of Alonzo Gage and Ida Hurlbert. She was born in 1884. My feeling is that Maud, from an early age, loved to write. By going through the donation that consists of a notebook of both stories, poems, and songs, and also plays, which I will get back to in a few minutes. Maud taught school in Hatley and Aircliff and Beebe, and possibly many other communities in the area. Maud married the love of her life, Albert Edward Pellerin, in 1918. They moved into the Pellerin homestead in Hatley and worked hard to modernize and build up the family farm. They only had one son, Roger, born in 1919. In May 1931, her husband, Ed, died suddenly, and she was now left to raise her son and try to run the family farm. Maud's son, Roger, joined the Canadian Army during World War II and returned home in 1945, after being formally discharged in January 1946. Maud realized Roger was not interested in farming, and she sold the Pellerin farm and bought a 2-tenement house in Hatley, where she lived until her death in 1958. Now back to Maud's collection here at the museum. As I have said, Maud had a love for history and writing, and we are so lucky to have, as you can see behind me, just a second, I'm going to turn the light on so you can see. Right here, I'm hoping you can see the typewriter that Maud used to type up so many of her stories and her books. And it's one of our Adopt an Artifacts from our recent fundraiser. I'm going to shut the light off because it's a little bit blaring. From my understanding, Maud did most of her writings on this typewriter. Maud's first attempt at publishing a book was a joint effort with Bertha Weston Price. In 1929, the two women published a book, The Trail of the Broad Highway, at the cost of $850, which translates in today's money in as $12,000. Here I have a few artifacts. Here is a mock-up of the book, which you can see. Let's see here. It's the first few pages, but then it goes blank. And also I've been told that many of her stories contain little drawings, which Maud did. Also, I have a order form for the books, and I believe they probably were made by Maud and also typed on this very typewriter. And also a press and subscribers' comments on Trail of the Broad Highway. All personal notes on how people love the book. What else do I have here? Oh, here's a form. A receipt from Ray Beerworth of Quaticook, sending the amount owed. And please send 6 more books as soon as possible. Unfortunately, as fast as they were selling the books, many were being returned. The pages were falling out. Despite lengthy correspondence with the publisher, it was never reprinted and was a total loss to the two ladies. These two women were not easily discouraged, and because they both went on to write and publish other books. Maud wrote the very important history of Hatley, as I have the original manuscript, and was also typed, we believe, of course, on our typewriter. And also the original, she also wrote songs, music, the songs of old Quebec. Now it doesn't we don't have music notes, but all the words to different songs that she wrote. Both were published in 1949. The Story of Hatley was reprinted by the Hatley branch of the Women's Institute in 1967 and again in 1999. I could go on and on about Maud Gage Pellerin, but in closing, I leave you with this. Her last manuscript was found among her belongings some 60 years after her death, called The Stories My Grandfather Told. And this was recently donated by her granddaughter, Linda Pellerin Cash Jones. I'm sorry, Linda, if I massacred your name. And Linda also prepared this manuscript this year, and with all the profits being donated to the Colby-Curtis Museum, we have this little wonderful book for sale. I want to thank Linda for her biography she wrote on her grandmother. I have it here in the archives, and it gave me most of the information I have shared with you today. Thank you for taking the time to listen.
Thank you, Kathy. That's a wonderful collection. And to have the actual typewriter too. That's amazing.
It really puts everything together. And I feel I've heard so much from Linda about her grandmother that I honestly feel like I know the lady, and having the typewriter and all the manuscripts and all the little things that go with her writings, it's a real wonderful collection.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I was thinking of Glenn when you showed the music book without notes. I mean, that's agonizing probably to a musician, eh, Glenn?
It's a bit, but actually very common. I was saying to Kathy before, for that era, words were considered more important than music.
We went through this during the sound check. He was telling me, oh, he's quite interested in it. So yeah, it's very different than just to see the words, but it's a song book.
I found a copy in Cornwall, Ontario at a pretty penny.
No, that's pretty cool. Oh, that's wonderful. And I'm so glad you were able to publish her stories again. I mean, that's fabulous. It's a good fundraiser for the museum, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And Linda has produced a learning tool to go along for our education program. So, and she's donated 20 books to surrounding schools. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks so much, Kathy. It's so
You're
nice to see
welcome.
a bit of the beautiful Colby-Curtis Museum in the background too. So thanks for sharing and being with us again. Good to see you.
Thanks. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
And just a hot tip for everyone, Kathy is one of our stars in the next Scandal Maker series. So watch out for Kathy coming soon to a video near you. Great. Well, on we go. We're going to head west again and make our way over to the historic community of Knowlton in Brome County. And we'll meet with the Musée Lac Brome Museum's new curator, Rachel Lambie. Hi, Rachel, and it's nice to finally virtually meet you.
Hi, it's my pleasure to be here. So yes, I'm the new curator at the Lac Brome Museum in Knowlton. You may have known us as the Brome County Historical Society, and we just have a new trade name. Nothing else has changed. So I'm very excited to present to you under our new name today. I am obviously not in Knowlton at the moment because, as with Tyson and several others, the piece that I'm going to be sharing with you today was just too big to fit into my car. So instead, I filmed a little bit ahead of time, but we have quite a large collection that encompasses all of historic Brome County, which includes the 5 original townships of Brome, Bolton, Potton, Sutton, and East Farnham. So it's a lot of area to cover and a lot of history to cover as well. So if, Glenn, I think you have the video. There we go.
Hello, my name is Rachel Lambie, and I am the curator of the Musée Lac Brome Museum. I am speaking to you at the time of this recording from the Paul Holland Knowlton Cabin, which is our exhibition space that houses our Loyalist collection. I'm going to be talking to you today about the Dutch cupboard, which you can see just behind me here, which was made by Colonel Hendrik Reuter for his daughter Catherine on the occasion of her marriage in 1806 to David Heath. The Reuters were loyalists who came up from the United States during the American Civil War. Many loyalists came up at that time and settled in the area that would be known as Brome County. The story that goes along with this cupboard, because of course there's a story, is that Katie, as she was known, hid in the bottom half of this cupboard on the night of her wedding, not because she was nervous or had cold feet, but because she didn't love the custom of the time in which guests would accompany the bride and groom to their bedchamber. And so in order to avoid that, Katie folded herself quite up nicely and hid in the bottom of this cupboard. That is why, amongst the staff and members of the museum and Historical Society, this cupboard is known as Katie's Cupboard. It was donated by Edgar Barnett, who was a descendant of Katie and David, and we treasure it greatly and have it on display amongst our Loyalist collection for all to see.
Good. That's great. Good for Katie.
Oh yeah, she certainly knew her boundaries and stuck to them. So that is also one of our Adopt an Artifact artifacts for our yearly fundraiser, and it's on display in our permanent collection, which unfortunately is closed for the winter, but it will be open again in the spring, as is the cabin, because it's a little chilly in there in the winter.
They must have added shelves in later, do you think, Rachel?
I expect so. I have no idea how she would have fit in there, shelves or not, but they made them smaller back then.
Yeah, no, it's a great story and so old too. I mean, what a beautiful piece of furniture. Yeah, very cool. I know there's writers all over that, in Cowansville and in Missisquoi County too. And so it's really fun to follow their path through the townships. Yeah, very interesting. Let's see if there's any questions coming through, Glenn, at all. But other than that, thank you very much, Rachel. It was nice to see a little film of it and in your cabin. I haven't been there in a while. It looks beautiful, all set up now. I think I went for its opening and it was a little empty at the time. So it's beautiful now. So there's another great little museum to go and visit for folks that haven't been out to the Townships Museum. So at the Musée Lac Brome Museum. Excellent. Thank you, Rachel. Our next show and tell is with the Richmond County Historical Society President, Norma Husk. Hello, Norma.
Hi there. It's good to be here this afternoon with everybody and see all these fine presentations. Our presentation is in some ways similar to some of the others where the objects have been too big to actually haul around. So I've put a PowerPoint together to give it some context and to show to all of you. So we're happy to be part of the Township's Heritage Fair of this particular year. Let me see if I can get this going properly. I'm going to zoom in on this picture. Oops, I did the wrong thing. Wouldn't you know? Sorry. Whoops. Previous. Sorry, I practiced this. You would never know, though, would you? And let's just start all over again here, shall we? From the current slide. Here we go. I'm just going to zoom in on this building because this gives some context to what the object that we're going to be talking about here. This
Norma,
is the
you need to do
Richmond...
you need to do the screen share. I'm afraid you didn't click share screen yet.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
But you're almost there.
I'm almost there. Where's the Zoom meeting? Share screen. Okay.
Then click on your PowerPoint.
There we go.
Okay, good. From beginning, and you're good.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Okay, so we're really happy to be part of the fair. Next picture is our context picture, which is the old town hall in Richmond. This building was demolished in about 2002, but as you can see, it was a very old building, 1877. It housed the town hall, the fire station, the municipal police, But the story we're talking about comes from the second floor of this building, which was a hall with a stage, etc. It was used for all kinds of community events, plays, concerts, get-togethers of all kinds, including Teen Town, which was very important at the time. And I actually did brownies in that hall. So it was something that was particular to and important to the community as a whole. And this is our actual, whoops, oh my gosh, I did it again. Sorry. Previous, here we go. I'm going to zoom in on this because this is our object. This is a mural on canvas painted by a local artist from Sherbrooke, Antonio Montour. He painted this, according to the date on the mural, in 1942, so right in the middle of the Second World War. And it was commissioned for this particular hall in that it fits perfectly on the stage. It was a back curtain to the stage. This building, because it was demolished in 2002, was a project of a local person to try to save this mural. And so this is how we came to be part of the experience, I guess. This gentleman's name is Romeo Boutin, and he was the one who rescued this mural before demolition and brought it to this hall that you see pictured here, which is Centre Sainte-Famille, a former church in Richmond, and it was stored here for approximately 20 years. This building has recently been sold, last year actually, and Monsieur Boutin approached the Historical Society to see if we could help to find a place to house and display this mural. Here's a shot from the choir section of the church, and you can see that this was a community effort. Our Historical Society has been trying to engage other community groups to try to showcase what we are doing. And so you can see various people. From left is the director, Dominique Fontaine-Lasnier of the Richmond Centre d'Art. Next to him is Louis Carignan, a community member, Monsieur Leblanc, myself, and on the extreme right is Serge Malenfant, who used to be the director of Mûrir in Sherbrooke, who's now the president of the Global Mural Association. And Monsieur Malenfant, he came to offer his expertise on how to properly store this mural until we can find a new home for it. These are 4 volunteers carrying this long object to its resting home where it is right now being stored at the Richmond Melbourne United Church. This mural is 30 feet wide and 15 feet long. So it's not easy to find a new home for it. And one of our objects in wanting to share this with you today was in the hopes that one of you would be able to know where we could find a new home for it, to actually show this piece of art, display it, and have the public enjoy it. So that's our object, and we're very pleased to be able to show it and share it with you.
That was beautiful, Norma. What an incredible piece of art that you have in your collection. And indeed, where to put it, eh? It's quite something, quite unique too. It reminds me of the Haskell Opera House curtain that they have too. It's all painted. I know Matthew Farfan has written articles about that, and so it reminds me of it. I don't know if yours is as old, but it's certainly beautiful, and the beautiful colors too. I just love it. So. Oh, where to put it? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm just looking, Matthew says it's a grand drape, you know, so it's, they don't make them like that anymore, that's for sure. Yeah, thank you very much, Norma. Right.
Welcome. My pleasure.
Great. So we're going to see a familiar face again with John Mackley, who's wearing two hats today and is representing the Bury Historical and Heritage Society. Hi again, John. And what does Bury have for us today?
Well, good afternoon. Pleasure to be here. Our object today is, seeing that we are coming up on municipal elections, I thought this piece to take a look at. This is an elector list from 1930. The list of electors for Bury, Quebec, Compton County, and if opened carefully, you'll see that it is hand itemized. Every person, it's, I'm assuming the town secretary with very good handwriting, put each name and their first name and their profession. And there's some very interesting names in here. There are quite a number from the Barter family, who happens the name of our, the Historical Society's co-archivist, Joel Barter. And there's also a name here. Where did it go? There's quite a number of Dohertys, and her is named Doherty. And someone with the same first name, I haven't done the research to see if it is his father or not, but Walter Doherty is the name of current mayor, and it's listed as a blacksmith. But this Walter Doherty, his residence was in Colebrook, New Hampshire, and yet he was on the voter list, which I find quite fascinating. I think the regulations have changed a bit since then. Another thing I've noticed, just wanted to point out is that the women that are listed are mostly, their occupation is mostly farmer, but often farmer, which I did not find any widowers mentioned, but they seem to feel it was important to let everyone know who all the widows were in town. So this is our artifact, and I've been pleased to present it to you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, John. That's really a very cool artifact. You know, it's funny that you know, it's something with seemingly so simple, and yet it's so rich in history. And perhaps the widows were identified because they were allowed to vote, whereas other women would not be allowed to in that time period in Quebec. So maybe that's why
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
So, we'll write up something about it.
Yeah, check that out a little more, because I think married women and single women were still considered in the category of children and imbeciles and kind of awful designations like that. And I think women won the right to vote in the 40s sometime. I don't have the exact date in my head, but so widows were allowed to vote. So that might have been why they're identified. So interesting.
Thanks for mentioning that. I will check into this, and we'll write up something about it.
Very good. Thank you. As somebody wrote,
thank you.
Jennifer Crane, are visitors allowed to consult that electoral list?
Arrangements could be made. We are currently in the situation where we have no museum, we have no archives. We hope someday to have, but nothing is for sure yet. The archives are currently now, half of the archives are in my room upstairs, and other members of the Historical Society Executive Committee. So they're scattered around, and we're hoping someday to get things in one place and to display our artifacts in a much more public manner, perhaps when
maybe
COVID is history.
Somebody could contact you through the Bury Heritage Historical Society Facebook page or something like that?
Yes, we're on Facebook. We have a website, and my contact info is all over the place.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you, John. That's really a very interesting artifact.
Thank you very much.
Good. Well, speak of wearing two hats, we're going back to Cowansville, and we're going to say hello again to Michelle at the Cowansville Historical Society. Hello, Michelle Rassico.
Hello again. Yes, still here. Yes, I'm representing the Council Historical Society this time, and our object is a scale model of the Freeport Covered Bridge, which is, I hope you can see it right behind me. Now, in 2013, there's a citizen in council, Monsieur Paul Colette. He contacted me and asked me to go see him at his home. And I was curious to know why. He said, well, I've got something I want to show you. And more than that, I want to give this object to the Council Historical Society. So when I got to his home in his garage, his workshop, let's say, he showed me this scale model. Oh, did I lose it? Am I okay?
All
okay,
good, Michelle.
I'm sorry. I was losing the picture. When I saw the scale model of the Freeport Covered Bridge in his garage or his workshop, I was really, really impressed with the quality of the work, the precision, truly a masterpiece. And it took him more than 500 hours to make. So he gave us this scale model of the Freeport Covered Bridge, which is still standing here in Cowansville. I'll talk to you about the bridge in a few minutes. And with the covered bridge, he also gave us a small booklet, the step-by-step making of the scale model. And you go from page to page, all the measures. He really is very precise in the work. It's absolutely fantastic to see. Now, the Freeport Covered Bridge was built in 1870 here in Cowansville at a cost of $850 on the south branch of the Yamaska River in a place called, at the time, that section was called Freeport. It was named after a man named Freeman Eldridge, who was an important builder and manufacturer who had settled in that section. And that's why they, from his given name, Freeman, they transferred to Freeport and right by the river. And today, well, he was there in the 1840s, and today this is part of Cowansville, like I say. For a long time, the covered bridge had no official name. It was often referred to with the name of the family living on the farm that stood just beside the bridge. For a while, it was the Gibson covered bridge, the Hall covered bridge, the Foster covered bridge. Then finally, in 1970, Cowansville gave it its official name, Freeport Covered Bridge. Now, through the years, that bridge is still in very good standing today, still used daily. But through the year, several accidents occurred. The Freeport Covered Bridge was damaged a few times. In the late 1950s, a truck went through the floor and down in the river, so they repaired it. And the last time was about 3 years ago when another truck tried to go through it and tore part of the structure. So we had to close the bridge several months to have it repaired. But it's all back in good shape today. In 2005, the government of Quebec published a book titled Les Ponts Couverts du Québec. And on page 102, I'll find the page. On page 102, you see the Freeport Covered Bridge. And the title of the Freeport Covered Bridge, they just titled Une œuvre d'art. That's how the government put it, Monsieur. Une œuvre d'art, a work of art. So naturally, well, I agree with them. It is indeed a work of art. And I also think that the scale model made by Monsieur Colette in 2013 is also a work of art. So, like I said, your next visit to Cowansville, come to the Bruck Museum, not only to see the permanent collection of the Bruck Museum, but to see us at the Cowansville Historical Society, where I have my office, and where you will be able to see this scale model of the Freeport Covered Bridge. And let me tell you, it's very interesting to see all the little work, the precision that he did with, Mr. Colette did with that. And also take the time to go and see the bridge. It's on Bell Street. It's for those who are not familiar with Cowansville, if you go down the Rue Principale, Main Street, then you take Rue de la Rivière, River Street, you'll get to the McDonald restaurant. Or ask anybody in Cowansville, they know the McDonald restaurant. It's on the corner of Bell Street and the Rue de la Rivière. So you go on Bell Street till the end, you'll get to the Freeport Covered Bridge. You can stop there, there's a rest area, and there's also a panel giving you the history, the complete history of the Freeport Covered Bridge. So come and see us. There's a few interesting things to see in Cowansville. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That's an incredible scale model. And it is a beautiful bridge. I've been over it before too. And amazing that they actually recorded a book on, so anybody can just maybe borrow the book and make their own scale model.
Yeah, well, I'll have it digitized soon and be able to share it with a lot of people.
Very good. And our bridges in the Eastern Townships are so precious. And I have one not too far from me too, and a truck just damaged it. So it's modern.
There are not that many left in Quebec, you know, because a few years ago, they were saying in the book that for a period of time, there were over 1,000 covered bridges in Quebec. And just a few years ago, there were only 83 authentic covered bridges left in Quebec,
Wow.
83 out of 1,000.
Yeah,
So,
fabulous.
yeah, we have to be careful with them and try to preserve them as much as possible. And, and let me tell you here, the municipality and the government are doing a fantastic job in keeping in shape.
Yeah, very good. And I know our historical societies across the townships, if you have a bridge in your area, I know everyone is quite aware of the bridge and preserving its history and looking after it, because we have lost, like you said, too many, and through vandalism or truck damage, that sort of thing. So yeah, so thank you very much for bringing our attention to the Freeport Covered Bridge. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Well, I'm delighted to present to you our second guest speaker for this afternoon. Danielle Dansereau is a freelance writer, an award-winning screenwriter, an environmentalist, and an activist. She's published 16 titles in children's literature, many articles, as well as an historical monograph, Borders, Customs, and Smuggling. She's been involved for 30 years in the conservation of natural heritage of her region and is currently writing about the fight to protect and preserve the Pinnacle Mountain. Today, Danielle joins us to tell us all about the wild days of rum running and contraband along the border in her talk called Borders, Customs, and Smuggling. Hello, Danielle, and welcome.
Hello, Heather. Thank you very much for having me. I feel very humbled to be here because I think you're all very knowledgeable in history.
Very good. You can start, Danielle. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I just, anyway, prepared a little PowerPoint with stuff. I just want to start sharing my screen. Just a second. I don't know. How do I?
Go to diaporama.
Yeah, diaporama, but
on the top there to the left. See, it's like you keep going to the right now. Okay, slowly,
Yes.
and there it is.
Diaporama.
And then lire à partir de, go up, scroll up. See,
Lire à
lire à
partir
partir
du
de,
début. Yeah.
exactement.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to say that my interest in the story of the border started in early 1974 when I moved to Fredericksburg from Montreal. And my son was 7 months old, and I was walking with him on his carriage daily. And I lived in Fredericksburg, and it was very appealing to me to live on the border. And I felt it was the closest place to somewhere else, and really appealed to me. I was living very near Eccles Hill. And when I was walking with my son, I saw a monument about the Fenian raid. And I discovered that the turmoil previous to this raid caused a terrible drama because a woman going out to get water from her well was accidentally shot during and killed by our own troops because they thought she was a Fenian. So at the time, the young mother in me was very impressed, and I didn't really understand what the Fenians were and all that. And I thought this is kind of intense. And it's only after that I made some research and realized who the Fenians were. And I thought it was really amazing that that group of extremist Irish people who wanted to, who were sworn enemies of Great Britain, wanted to invade Canada in order to exchange it for the Irish independence, which sounded, anyway, it didn't work, but but it caused that event that really impressed me as a young mother. And at the time when I arrived, it was still possible to walk freely from Quebec to Vermont. And I did, maybe not on a daily basis, but I did several times. And if there were hidden censors, as we were told there were, I was never bothered. So I was very surprised by that. But within a few months, prior to the 76 Olympics in Montreal, the borders suddenly closed. All the little roads that we used to take in the border were closed. So I became interested in, so this is the monument, and there's a picture of the Fenian, and this is the tomb of Margaret Vincent, who was shot by our own troops on June 10, 1866. So I discovered that our story is fascinating, and that it was actually, the line moved as a result of war carried on elsewhere. And but the one opposing France and the British Empire, the War of Independence, opposing the 13 American colonies to the British Empire, and the Civil War, opposing North and South of the United States. But what I know, that under the French regime, the borders were defined by natural features. But then when New France was surrendered, the territory was delimited to the 45th parallel north. But the real challenge was, and it's interesting because Bev showed us exactly that, excuse me, I don't know where to put that. Are you seeing what I'm doing? Anyway, you seeing? Okay. Anyway, so there was the challenge was to find the latitude, and I love the Bev presentation, because what I learned is it took a lot of people to go into the woods and try to find where it was. And there was many expeditions that were sent there. And for 60 years, we didn't really know. I mean, the very first was surveyor John Collins in 1872, and it was based on the maps. The reference maps were inaccurate. And also the little story says that they drank too much of or a lot of potato whiskey and committed many mistakes in their calculation. So the line was a zigzag in nature and was passing too far north. So for 60 years, there was a lot of kerfuffle about where was latitude 45 north. And it took 60 years for someone who come from England, Lord Ashburton, and he settled. It took him only a few months to settle the dispute, because they found apparently when Benjamin Franklin was negotiating, he recalled that he had put a map he had written a red demarcation where the border was, but nobody could find it. There was like 60,000 maps. But apparently it was finally found, but the red line in question measured 20 square centimeters and gave more territory south of Montreal than the treaty granted. And to Great Britain, it gave much more of Maine than had been claimed. So it was still very difficult. So they sent an army of, they signed a treaty, first of all, they signed a treaty in August 1842, like 6 months after his arrival. And then it was surveyed and marked by a small army of astronomers, surveyors, lumberjacks, and 500 other laborers. And they did a 9-meter trench cleared into the forest. And apparently, ironically, the border is just about where it was drawn by Collins in 1772. But anyway, there were mistakes. And the famous mistake is Fort Montgomery in Rouse's Point near Lake Champlain. Apparently, the American invested $1 million worth of silver in building the fort, only to find out later that it was built in Canadian soil. So, as you mentioned earlier, some people mentioned that we all know that there was a massive influx of loyalists who arrived after the war in the States was finished, or even before it was totally finished. And that I'm going to go faster here. And the Eastern Townships were open to settlement in 1791. And so what I find really interesting is that whenever something is forbidden, it creates an irresistible temptation. And just the fact that the boundary was created new words like custom duty. They had to collect tax, which apparently is the biggest problem in Canadian border history. And new words appeared in our vocabulary: receiver, tariff, excise, bootlegger. So what I find interesting is that, tariff came from the Moors, from Spanish tarifa, a fortress from which the Moors collected tax on ships. So it is very close to piracy, actually. Excise is from Dutch, excius, and Latin excisa, meaning height, a tax levied on the populace. And bootleggers from the American, it appeared during Prohibition, I'll come back to it. And it's literally a man who hides a bottle of liquor in his boot, synonym of smuggler of alcohol. So, I feel, okay, so a few dates, it's like a graduation. First of all, British Parliament imposed the excise tax, and then the Cromwell law authorized seizures without warrant. And then smuggling equals confiscation of all merchandise and a fine, and then restriction to imposition of duties anyway for goods coming from the States. But smuggling, like this is a quotation I really like. I like a smuggler. He's the only thief. He robs nothing but the revenue, an abstraction that I never cared about. It's from an English author. And it shows that smugglers attracted sympathy from the citizens, and almost everybody is a smuggler in his heart. According to when I wrote that book, I had many interviews with people who had witnessed act of smuggling, and they all expressed that there was a sympathy for the smugglers. So I find it very interesting. But there was a lot of penalties. I found some old pictures too, but but custom and smuggling is an inseparable pair. And the smugglers use unlimited means. I mean, they use the rubber tubing filled with whiskey, wrapped around smuggler's body, punctured eggs emptied and refilled with alcohol, baby bottles filled with fake milk, Christmas trees with flasks hidden in their trunk, cars so loaded with crates of liquor that their axle almost touched the ground. The Buick, Chevrolet, and Packard, like fast cars, were driven at night by daredevil drivers. Anyway, it's unlimited creativity. There's also this picture. I know it's not accurate, but I find it funny because it shows that even, I mean, we had testimonies of Catholic nuns who were arrested in Richford Crossing because they wanted to smuggle some lace for a convent in Richford. So I find it's and there's many cattle stories too, because but I'm not going to go into this detail, but it's all in the book I wrote. I collected little testimonies of people witnessing those events, of even hiding putting like feet under the hooves of their cattle, so to show that there were people crossing instead of cattle being smuggled. Which I come to the years of Prohibition, which is absolutely juicy in stories about the border. And so it came with the Volstead Act. It was in effect on January 1920, and it was a law prohibiting the manufacture, transportation, and sale of alcohol in the United States. And we know that at that time, alcohol was viewed as the devil's brew. It created many social problems, and communities in the States could decide to become wet or dry. And not everybody was on the dry solution, like we can see on the CPR employee notice, saying whether on or off duty, your time belongs to the company, and you are warned not to take any part of intemperance work involving opposition to the liquor power on pain of dismissal. And that was by order of the power, William Van Horn, and it was published in the Montreal Daily Star. So yes, so the bootleggers had a lot of fun during that time. I mean, stills were made out of old pots, vehicle radiators. Sometimes they were hidden in stables or even in church organ loft. Barley whiskey, called squirrel whiskey, could cost $25 a quart. And a case of best Canadian whiskey bought in Montreal for $10 could be sold in New York for $80. So fortunes were made in that lucrative business. They say that in the year 1924 alone, like 5 million gallons of whiskey were smuggled into the United States. In exchange, Canada would be flooded with American goods such as textile and cigarettes. The story is told that sometimes custom, and I had testimony of that in the interviews I conducted to write the book, that custom agents, when they were in pursuit, distillers would drag chain behind their cars to create clouds of dust. Or when the custom agents had spotters on the road to report suspect activities. And when a raid appeared imminent, agents could call on the local American sheriff to assist, but often the smugglers could abandon the cargo and flee on foot if the situation got sticky. And apparently it happened to George Barber. He was a resident of Fredericksburg, and it was reported in the Vermont newspaper that it happened to him, that George Barber and his neighbor, Georges Grasset of Abbott's Corner, were in the Packard when it was disabled, and they escaped by jumping into the bushes. But the custom agents so had spotters, but they were not very appreciated, as you can imagine. And the story is told of an old lady, Marjorie Small, who was living near the border, and she was an informant for the custom officers. And the day after a raid in which several smugglers were arrested, she found a little cedar box on her porch in a miniature coffin. Inside was a note saying, "This too small, next will fit you." So it was a direct threat. So evidence of violence. Okay, this is not the picture of the epoch. That's the only thing I could find to illustrate it, but it was said that a man from Richford, his name was Burton Macy, pushed over the edge of a bootlegging and debauchery. He was pushed over the edge of that. He was really fed up with bootlegging and debauchery in the area. So he tried to bomb the Abercorn Hotel, and he was caught and taught a lesson. His body was tied to a train, to the rail, and the train ran over him, which is very small. I don't know if it's true. I mean, I've heard the story, and it was reported in the testimonies I had. What happened to the confiscated alcohol? Well, they confiscated, the Canadian Prevention confiscated so much liquor that it's in its warehouse that it was unable to hold it all. And the frequent theme in the anecdotes is the regret that the custom agents felt when compelled to destroy so much alcohol. And at one point, an old border region custom and excise office was being torn down, and a trap door opened, and they discovered a large cellar hidden in the floor. And it was an enormous vat with a tap, and it was connected to the sink above. So you can see that probably the custom agents were collecting for themselves the alcohol that they seized. It's interesting because it was very difficult. It was very low pay to be a custom officer, and also some of the payment was what they were confiscating. So it was very tempting to confiscate goods. So in the year of Al Capone mythologies, because I came across that in the interviews I conducted, that people said, oh, they were part of Al Capone band, and I made some research, and I couldn't find really establish a relationship between Al Capone and local people, but I did find that the French guy was part of Al Capone's gang. His name was Léopold Lafrenet, but the local guy who was mentioned was Conrad Labelle. Apparently, he was the king of bootlegger in the area, and he was said to be a member of the Al Capone's gang, but he was arrested by the FBI. Okay, which leads me to speak about the movement of temperance, which is a very interesting movement because it's supposed to be to temper with pleasure. And like the motto, one of the motto, like we can see, lips that touch liquor shall not touch ours. It was a group of women who were really trying to there were a movement in the States, but there were also ladies of temperance here. And the very first group was in Fredericksburg, and the second one was in Pigeon Hill, I think. So it was really local. And these ladies were sometimes held by, I mean, I'll give you a little anecdote. Apparently, the group of temperance in in Richford, the Women's Christian Temperance Union were very successful. They had the region declared dry in 1914, but it was a fake victory because the fierce local competition was one person, it was Queen Lil, who was supporting them, giving them money because it was good for business to have to have something forbidden. But she's a very interesting person of the epoch because she was born in Boston. She was the daughter of a famous outlaw and a dealer of traditional native medicine. But she was involved in shady business and prostitution. And she arrived in East Richford, and she bought in 1913 the ruins of a hotel built right on the border. And it had been destroyed by fire the year before, so she rebuilt a 3-story building. But the laws forbid building on the line, so she was taken to court. But she was very astute, and she managed to persuade the judge that she had not built a new building, but renovated an existing one. And she named it the Palace of Sins. It became a well-known gin house and also a celebrated brothel. And because it was right next to the Canadian Pacific Railway, Boston to Montreal, it became an unofficial stop right at the door. So she was a flamboyant person, loved to strut about in multi-layered clothing, big hats and broad rims, and always carried a gun. And her leather bag was said to be bulged with wads of cash. And her Palace of Sins, she neutralized attempts by the authorities to catch her illegal business until one night that she met a guy. His name Otis Gross, deputy sheriff of Richford, and he managed to coordinate with the Canadian authority, because what she did is when she had a visit by the police of the Canadian, she would move all the customers to the American side and vice versa. And so they got together thanks to that guy, and they arrested her. And during the night at the Palace of Sin, and it kind of tempered her for a while, but she bounced back, even if she had taken a hard blow with this. She pleaded guilty, and then to have had a house of prostitution and illegal serving alcohol. And she paid a fine, but she rebounded and bought herself a luxury car and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she was very well off after that too. But at the end of Prohibition and after her bordello burned, she changed her life, and she legally married a guy named Stanley Fleury from Richford. He was a widowed farmer with children, and she normalized her activities by investing on the farm. And apparently she bought herself a 12-cylinder Lincoln, which she drove until her death in 1951. So before, since this exciting time, I mean, there's much more details in my book. I don't want to take too much of your time, but now there is more goods being, I mean, during the war, the smuggling flourished as well, but it's not so much to get rich than to survive, because things were, it was tough to eat, really. So the goods that were smuggled were more like wheat, animal food, agricultural equipment, fridges, cars, truck, livestock, portable radios, televisions, cigarettes, alcohol, dope, of course. I mean, drugs were always smuggled, and also arms. Just an apartheid, until 1908, I learned that opium could be brought to Canada subject to a tax, and even marijuana entered freely and had no restriction placed until the beginning of the 20th century. But also in the interviews I conducted, I learned that there was human trafficking already in the last 100 years. And what will be the future of illegal passing, probably around the migrant crisis. It's already started, and people are forced to move for social, economical, or even climate-related ordeals. So I will finish by saying that there is 1,000 reasons to want to go somewhere else across the border in the most discreet manner possible. And there's a multiple of juicy stories that are current even today and or are hidden in our collective memory and have not been told yet. So I hope I have I hope I have piqued your curiosity. That's it. I'm sorry, I forgot to show you this, but anyway, this is where I live now. That's it. So how do I arrêter de partager? Okay.
That's perfect. Yeah. That's it. You did it. Thank you, Danielle. It was so fascinating. You know, so many of our little historical societies are very close to the borders. So, and I know a lot of people have stories that reflect of what you've just told us today.
Yeah, people are still calling me to tell me stories, anecdotes, and things like that, even well after I published. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know in some collections, I know at the Missisquoi Museum, there's a still that the local pharmacist used in his garage, you know, and he made his own liquor. And, you know, this is an upstanding man in the community, but there he was in his garage in the evening making potato whiskey. And I think at the Brome Museum too, there's a smuggling chair. I don't know if you've discovered that yet, Rachel, but there was a chair that an old woman used to sit in the back of a wagon, like what was that show in the 60s, the Beverly Hillbillies, you know, back and forth across the border in the back of a wagon. And in her rocking chair, it was filled with liquor bottles, and no one ever stopped her because you wouldn't suspect an old woman doing that. But yeah, so there's so many little stories, and we sort of think that they're very quaint, but could be very dangerous too, as you pointed out. So yeah, crazy. Does anybody have any questions for Danielle?
I think we should write Netflix and encourage them to develop a series based on the township's border, all about smuggling in. The central place could be the Palace of Sins, and this
Queen
woman.
Lil.
It reminds me of that show Deadwood on HBO, actually. It's clearly a very vivid history, and amazing that it's so strongly in so many people's memories. I spent a lot of time in Gaspé, and same stories. The stories of smuggling were always shared at a story session if you're visiting an older community member. Spotters, boats coming in from St. Pierre and Miquelon during Prohibition. You know, it's like I think they're the best stories.
Yeah. Society being naughty. and even today, you know, although not as much now that it's been legalized, but the low-flying helicopters over our region this time of year, you know, and looking for illegal plants and weed and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's quite something. You've really just probably started scraping the surface of the story in your book, Danielle. There's probably volume 2 to come.
Yeah, no, I know. It's just an introduction, really. It's something because I was discovering the subject and I thought it was fascinating, and a lot of people don't know about these things. I mean, you guys, I think you all know, but anyway, yeah.
Oh, lots of research still to do for sure. And Danielle, just as we will with John Mackley, we'll put the information on how to find your book up on QAHN's Facebook page as well, and where to order it from and how to arrange if you want to pick it up in person in Frelighsburg. We'll put all that information.
Yeah, it's the Historical Society of Frelighsburg.
Right, yeah, for sure. So we've got all that, and we'll make sure that people want to read this further in more detail. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. So, and I think that John Mackley's book, Old Tom Stories, and your book, Danielle, and the QAHN Anthology would make very good Christmas presents. So now is the time to order. I guess everyone, our time has come to an end. But before I go, and on behalf of my super co-host, Glenn Patterson, I would like to thank you all very much for being here with us today. From across the townships. Keep up the good work, everyone. You're doing amazing work in your own areas of the townships, and together we're all creating this wonderful history that we can share with people, and people can really learn a lot from our historical societies. Thank you too to the wonderful John Mackley and Danielle Dansereau, our guest speakers. Thank you for your time and the stories you shared with us today, and your talents as well. Thank you to the QAHN board members, our president, Grant Myers, our executive director, Matthew Farfan, and thank you to all our viewers today who joined us on this lovely Sunday afternoon. And if you'd like to catch the fair again, as Glenn mentioned, it has been recorded, and you can find the recording on QAHN's Facebook page. And you don't need your own Facebook page to see it. You can just go there. It's a public site. So again, thanks everyone. Heritage Fair 2021 is all done. So stay safe, and until next time, bye now.